Waterfall, the CCW podcast.
Hello and welcome to Waterfall. It's the water saving podcast brought to you by CCW. That's the Consumer Council for Water. I'm Mike. I'm here with Karen. Hi, Karen.
Hello, Mike.
And of course, there's Tom. Hi, Tom. Producer Tom.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Karen. Hi, everyone.
He's well lit as ever. So it's Waterfall. It's all about water saving water, saving money, protecting the environment and combating climate change. But occasionally, like the drowned rats that we are, we go down the sewers, and that's where we're going today. I mean, we're going down the dumper. I mean, some people might argue we've been doing that since season 2, but you know, that's a bit harsh, isn't it? But we are going into the sewers and we are lifting the mist on fog. Ooh, and we've got, not only do we have a guest called Steve, we also have a guest interviewer also called Steve. So it's the Steve show today, isn't it? But this isn't the first time we've had Steve interviewer, so Steve Grebby on. He's been on before, hasn't he, Karen?
He has, yes. He's our sewer expert. All things to do with fats, oils and grease. Anything to do with sewers, as you say. Steve's our man.
Yeah, I think it was Flush Decisions, which is, I want to say, is episode 7, was Steve.
He was technically our first guest, and he's a good friend of the show.
He was our first guest. That's correct. Well done, Tom. I remember. And he was also on our Christmas special from last year.
Yes.
It's the most waterfall time of the year, which I don't really remember for Steve being on it, because that's the one my mum was on. Which,
she was the breakout star of that one, yeah, I think.
Yeah, she's a bit disappointed that our podcasting career hasn't taken off.
Well, still time.
Well, we'll try and find a way to get her back on. Don't forget, you can get in touch with the show.
You can email us at podcast@ccwater.org.uk.
And we're on the socials as well. We're on Insta, Twitter, and X, and occasionally on Threads. Just search for Waterfall Podcast and you can find us. So before we get into the interviews with Steve on Steve, so that's Steve Grebby interviewing Steve Williams, who's from Southern Water, and he is another 2 sewage experts in one place. I'm sure there must be a collective name for that, but I don't know it. Tom is definitely thinking of something witty. I'll give you a few seconds, Tom, on that one. But before we get into it, I do want to talk to you two about an interesting news article I saw. And I'm going to predict what the answer is. I'm going to say a yes from Tom and a no from Karen, right?
Oh.
The question is, do you use your phone on the toilet, like reading the news or whatever? Tom?
I mean, I'm constantly using my phone. There is no situation when I'm not using my phone, so yes.
Karen?
And it's a definite no from me.
I thought that would be the case, and it is a yes from me. So, anyway, Apparently, this is very bad for you, okay? According to Dr. Surab Sethi, who is a gastroenterologist, I can't even say that properly, from San Francisco. Apparently, doing it can give you very bad backache because your position is not a natural position for like sitting. It's not meant as a seat for any length of time. But much more serious than that, apparently, sitting there scrolling can increased strain on your rectum and anus and lead to piles, anal fissures, and, most sinister of all, rectal prolapse. I don't even know what that is. Do you know what that is? It doesn't sound good.
No, anything prefixed with rectal, I try and stay away from. So, maybe I need the old newspaper, perhaps, get in and out.
Well, but maybe old school newspapers had the same impact.
True.
Who knows? So anyway, there you go. There's some wise words about toilet scrolls. Stay away from them. Anyway, I thought that was... Karen, you genuinely looked shocked. Like, your face. You genuinely looked shocked at this.
It never ceases to amaze me where these conversations end up.
You do realise I spend virtually all my time between podcast recordings trying to look for this sort of stuff. Anyway, Karen is definitely giving the please move on face. So let's move on and let's bring on not just our guest, but our guest interviewer as well, an interviewee. It's the Steves.
Be sure to head back through the archives and check out all the past episodes of Waterfall.
Steve, we're here to talk about fog and fatbergs. Tell us, what is a fatberg?
You want me to lift the mist on fog, do you?
I want you to... Yes, we're seeing through the mist. See through the fog.
Fat oil and grease, Steve. It's fat oil and grease. Every kitchen produces it, but obviously domestic kitchens produce a very small amount. But what we're talking about is the stuff that comes out of restaurants and food service establishments and so on. We call it fog because we look at it in the sewer and it just fogs up whatever we're looking at. But it's a combination of the fat, the oil and the grease that gets washed down the sink or through a dishwasher in a formal sort of hospitality kitchen, where the fat, oil and grease from the food cooking gets mixed with washing up liquid in warm water, and it forms a sort of soapy substance that clings to itself and other things in the sewer, and we call it fog.
I think I recall doing that many years ago. You know, you get your baking tray from your Sunday lunch and it's full of grease from your roast potatoes, and you stick a bit of washing up liquid in there, leave it to soak or give it a little agitation with the brush, and then straight down the sink. And that's not the way to do it. Why is that not the way to do it, Steve?
Well, I've done exactly the same as you, Steve. I did that about 25 years ago, probably, when I was cooking at home when my girls were small, and I managed to block my own sink up with chicken fat, and spent a lovely 2 hours dismantling the U-bend and cleaning it out. So I discovered to my own cost what fog was then.
I've been with you on that one. Been with you. It's the most really, anybody who's been under the sink and sort of unscrewed that trap knows how horrible it is.
And you see that amount in your own U-bend. Well, if you multiply that by the number of meals that a restaurant cooks or a takeaway prepares, and then flush it down in the sewer, you can understand why we get great big fatbergs that block metre wide or even bigger size sewers with the fat, oil and grease. So we would really, in the water companies, ask you not to flush it down the sink or wash it down the sink. Scrape everything off properly first into the bin, and then just wash the basically clean plate or utensil or whatever. Yeah. It makes my life so much easier.
Yeah, it makes my life easier when I don't pour fat down my sink, because I absolutely hate it unblocking it. And of course, a lot of people don't know that actually that's where the most blockages in the U-bend underneath the kitchen sink come from. I just wondered, apart from if you're doing it yourself, that horrendous experience of scraping the stinky fat out, what's the cost if you couldn't do it yourself and you'd block the U-bend or worse still, block the outside drain? What would it cost you to have that cleared?
Well, if we block the public sewer, there's obviously we're going to have to send a contractor out, one of our framework contracts out to clear that. So that's going to cost somewhere between probably 160 to 350 pounds, depending where the blockage is and how big it is. If you call out a contractor yourself for your own private drains, it's probably going to be a bit more than that. So it's a costly thing. I mean, our bills for unblocking drains run up to about £15 million a year at Southern Water.
And what would the cost be across all the companies then?
We estimate, and I've done a bit of research into this, it's probably between 180 million and 200 million pounds per year, clearing the sort of 400,000 blockages we have.
And so, if we get fat out of sewers by people not putting it down in the first place, or businesses not putting it down, all of that money, if not all of it, but some of it would come off customer bills.
Definitely. If we could stop that going in the sewers and causing the blockages, that's going to lift the burden on our customers paying those bills. And on top of that, fog could actually be repurposed as a waste and turned into biofuel or used in production of clean green energy.
How would they do that, Steve?
Well, if you can collect the fog, certainly from restaurants in fat traps and what have you, so if you fit the right equipment to stop that going down the drain, there are companies out there that will come and pick it up and repurpose it into biofuel, which is pertinent at the moment because that features in the plan for water from DEFRA about the removal of fossil fuels and it's going to fill the gap between the end of fossil fuel cars and vehicles and a full electric road system. Or if you can't do that, we can send it to anaerobic digestion, which produces a methane gas that turns a turbine, and we can make clean green electricity from it.
So we've currently got a resource, an energy source that's been flushed down the sink or comes out of restaurants, and actually that could be used for cars and buses, I presume, and also you can then generate that into energy to what, power sewage treatment works or?
Well, the great thing about it is it's a really powerful energy source, high calorific value, and if we can get it all the way to the treatment works, that's great. We can use it, but it's the problems it causes on the way. You know, the several miles it has to travel through twisty, bendy pipes where it sticks to the pipe and sticks to the wet wipe and sticks to little Johnny's plastic fish that he's flushed down for fun. We end up with blockages that we then have to go and clear.
And what, apart from those blockages, apart from the cost and the inconvenience of cleaning them, and I really wouldn't like to have the job of going down a sewer and digging those out. What other disruption does it cause to customers and to water companies?
Well, let's start with the odour, shall we? I mean, it stinks. To be fair, it really reeks. So we get quite a few odour complaints every year from sewers that are smelly. On top of that, if it blocks a sewer and it spills, that means not only the fat, oil and grease, but everything else in the sewer spills out into the environment. And that will include your toilet paper, your soiled sanitary items, and obviously the pee, poo, and the paper that we flush naturally through our normal bodily function. So that pops up, and then if it ends up in the environment, we end up causing a pollution, and we are directly affecting the environment we live in by what we put down the sewer.
And there are people, thousands of people every year that have their gardens flooded, and unfortunately still thousands of people that have their homes and properties flooded every year. What contribution does to blockages through fats, oils and grease make to those?
Well, again, I've looked at that through the Network Protection Forum that I chair every quarter, and on average, we've worked out at Sun and Water that 66% of our blockages, or up to 66% of blockages, contain some fog. Fog on its own that causes a blockage is about 15% or thereabouts of our total blockages, but it features in up to 66% of all blockages.
Yeah,
because it just loves a badly flushed wet wipe or a carelessly flushed, dirty hanky, or we've had other things in there, t-shirts, curtains, knives and forks. It will stick to all of that and make a fatberg for us.
So basically, the fog is the glue in the fatberg, isn't it?
Absolutely, and as you've already raised, Steve, if we can collect it and stop it, it's a valuable resource, really.
And apart from, the obvious benefits of not blocking your own sink, not blocking your own drain outside, where, if your outside drain's blocked, then you can't flush your loo. Nobody can use any showers within the home. That's a clear incentive for people not to do it in their own home, because there's a huge cost to it and there's a huge inconvenience, and it's very, very unpleasant. But you mentioned about restaurants and takeaways and cafes, and I presume you talked about kitchens in schools as well. What are the causes of the problem of fat? What caused the problem in those establishments to cause blockages?
Well, in larger establishments that are cooking multiple meals every day, obviously the level of fog contained in the wastewater is much, much higher than it would be from your domestic household. So we're multiplying that volume up by the number of meals you're cooking. So it could be 30, 40, 50. In the case of some big hotels, 3,000 or 4,000 meals a day. And if you're thinking about universities and schools, again, 1,000 plus meals a day for pupils at those learning establishments. that's a lot of fog to discharge that has a value if you don't discharge it.
So what can they? I mean, you can imagine what I was at my daughter's nursery school, and they have a little kitchen, and sure enough, eventually a vehicle turned up from a well-known drain clearing firm, and it was fat soils and grease, and of course that meant a nursery was essentially couldn't flush their loo, and it was at risk of closure. Had the drainage contractor not managed to clear that blockage quickly, the whole nursery would have had to close. So what is it that kitchen could have or should have done to prevent those fat soils and grease and the waste from the kitchen going to the sewers to cause a blockage?
Well, there is obviously kitchen processes that we can work with. So scrape the plates, dry wipe them before you wash them, or put them in the dishwasher. And for bigger establishments, they really need a grease management system, Steve. So
what's that? What's a grease management system? I've got a spatula, and that's my grease management system.
A grease management system is not a team of highly paid executives. It's basically a box full of cold water. It's cold water technology. You run your dishwasher or your sink into that box. It retains the water, the greasy water in there for a period. It allows the oil and grease to separate and float to the top. And it will always float because it's lighter than water. Any solid debris in there, bits of rice, bits of pasta, bits of potato and carrot, will sink to the bottom because they're obviously heavier than water. And then the clarified water will pass through a U-bend effectively into the sewer and leave the oil and grease behind, and only clear water hopefully goes to the sewer. So there are mechanical interventions like that. There's hydromechanical ones, which are grease recovery units where they have a hopper on the side to collect the skimmed off oil and grease. Or you just up your kitchen practice and, as you say, Steve, you get your silicone spatula out and scrape everything properly before you wash it.
This podcast is brought to you by CCW, the voice for water consumers.
So businesses and restaurants required to have these grease traps?
Sadly, not at the moment, Steve. They're the only legislation that we have is to say that under the Water Industry Act, you can't put anything in the sewer that is likely to cause a blockage. But we don't know it's likely to cause a blockage until it's caused a blockage.
Yeah.
So it's all very reactive. So what we
have to have the problem to happen first before you can correct it.
We have to understand the problem and where it comes from before we can approach perhaps the producer of the problem.
So what have Southern Water taken any? What action would you take as Southern Water if you found a pub that was chucking out loads of fat soils and grease and continuously causing blockages?
We'd go and visit them, Steve. We'd just go and visit them and ask them to understand why we're visiting. So we're going to explain ourselves first and explain that we're dealing with a blockage in the sewer that is likely to be affecting the environment we live in, or indeed the pub customers or neighbours or the surrounding community. We will offer them as much information as we can about how to stop that happening again. Then we will encourage them to use that information in a prompt, timely fashion, and hopefully that'll be all we need to do. We'll have a lovely conversation. We'll sit down over a coffee and discuss the problems, ask them to fit some grease management that is going to stop that blockage reoccurring. And at the worst end of it, we're going to have a prosecution if they refuse to engage with us, and potentially they could go to court and get a substantial fine.
Do most people respond to the sort of the coffee and the chat, or does the biggest stick in prosecution is that the one that?
Well, can I? You tell me, Steve, if our engagement process is right when I tell you we've engaged with in excess of 3,500 individual food service establishments in the last 7 years, and we've only prosecuted one.
Brilliant. So that shows that when people understand what's happening and what they're doing and what they can do about it, they do take the action because, they understand the consequences for them and the consequences for everybody else around them, and in their community that this causes blockages and flooding and can be devastating for, potentially their own customers.
Their own customers, their own families, their own community. What we don't want to do is damage the environment. So, please, if you need any help, contact us. We can put you in touch with the local water company that will obviously offer you some help. And if you want to come to us in the Southern Water area, I'm sure Steve and Tom can pass on my contact details and we'll help you out where we can.
And what sort of things would Southern Water do, both for householders and for restaurants and takeaways?
Well, aside from the wastewater thing, we'd like to control that and minimise anything that's likely to cause a blockage in the wastewater system. But we can also help out with the clean water stuff. We've got lots of gadgets and what have you at the moment. We've got shower timers to minimise your water use. We've got shower heads that we can give you that will reduce your water consumption in the shower. If you qualify in a region of water poverty or water scarcity, we can give you a water butt that will collect your own water and stop that overloading the foul sewer system. In fact, we're running a project at the moment, Steve. I don't know if you've heard of it, Project 100.
I have, yes. I was looking I was spying on your website to see what you're doing on the water saving side, because this is a water saving podcast, and they've ventured into the area of sewers and drains, which is more than welcome. But yes, tell us about Project 100.
Project 100 is the drive for Southern Water, or a project we're running to try and reduce the average daily use per person from around 125 litres per person per day to 100 litres per person per day. That will obviously save 20% of water used. So that's, when you're talking in an area of water scarcity, that's quite a big volume of water to be saving every day.
Yeah, and it's certainly, 100 litres a day is certainly, well below. But it's, getting it down to 100 is a big step in the right direction.
But, if you manage your showers and your baths and you're washing up, and things like that, you can get it down. I've just got this funny feeling from the look on your face, you're going to ask me what I'm going to use or what I use.
You've got us there, Steve. You've got us there. Yes, we ask everybody who's kind enough to come on to the show how much they use per day.
Well, I think I'm one of the bad guys then, because I got my water bill out yesterday. Thinking, and
you've been listening before and you anticipated the question.
Yeah, I listened to the Make Water Famous one and a couple of the others, and it became very clear that this question crops up every time. Sadly, my average usage over the last 6 months is 160 litres a day. Well, it's 160.8 to be fair.
160.8, Tom. I mean, what do we do with that? Where does that fit in the league table?
Yeah, it's going to be close to the bottom, Steve. But you do a lot of good work in the world, so I think it might balance it out a little bit.
Yeah. Carry on listening to the podcast, Steve. We've got loads of hints and tips of how you can get that down.
Yeah, like stop the wife using the hose pipe in the garden. You mean?
Yes, that's the thing. Or get just a trigger spray on the end of your hose as well.
Yeah,
he hasn't already got one. Water in the evening. And Karen Gibbs, who's normally on this show, we call her the guru. Karen's into mulching at the moment, which is basically everything you have on the garden that you would normally put in the garden bin if you've got one. You just sort of chop it up and leave it where it lies. So you cover the grounds with the leaves from the trees, and they all keep the weeds down, keep the moisture in, so you don't have to water so much.
And that's probably actually really good for the fauna in the garden as well, the insects and the spiders. And
it is, yes, yeah. I've used Karen's tips as an excuse not to mow my lawn this year, and it was a bit of a jungle, but I've got lots of bees and beetles wandering around as a result. So, Steve Williams, Southern Water, thank you so much for helping us on the Waterfall podcast, See Through the Fog. It's been fascinating to learn about, not only the cost and consequences for people at home and blocking their sinks, but also the savings that we can all make as a society on our water bills if we stop putting fats, oils and grease down the sink, and that restaurants and businesses reach out to water companies for the help they provide in order to fit grease traps and the like. So thanks again, Steve. Lovely to see you and hear from you.
Thank you for the invite. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you guys again. Can I leave with a little bit of a warning? You can include this or not.
You can.
If you're going to reduce your water usage down to 100 litres a day, that's obviously going to mean there's going to be less wash through your existing sewers, which makes it even more important to be careful about the fat, oil and grease and the unflushable things that we don't want in there. If we can combine the two, reduce the water usage and reduce the blockages, everything will work fine. Those Victorians were really clever designing the sewers, but they didn't think about 150 years on, did they?
They didn't indeed. Thanks very much, Steve. Lovely to see you.
And you. Thanks, Steve.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Enjoying the show? Please consider leaving a 5-star rating on iTunes and Spotify.
Wow, great interview there with the Steves. It's always great to have the Steves. Do you know what we should get? We should get the two Steves that were just on now, and then get Superfan Steve on too. We could have the full trio, Steve, and Superfan Steve. That'd be awesome. I can tell you now that Superfan Steve will say a big no to this request. But obviously, Tom, you were there with the Steves during the interview, but Karen and I, we've just been hearing that for the first time. So what do you make of all that, Karen?
Well, I think it's really interesting that, as came up in the conversation, sometimes, we do things out of habit and we don't really think about the potential consequences. And I think we've all been guilty at some time or another of rinsing stuff down the sink that we hope is going to go away and not come back to haunt us. And it just goes to show that, you can be really unlucky and it causes a big problem.
Yeah, but you want to avoid that kind of roulette, don't you, of will it be me next who's going to suffer from a blockage of your sewer. I was really struck just how much there's a focus on food service establishments. But then I suppose when you think about it, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Because they're just producing so many meals that their potential, their capacity for causing blockage is so much greater than everyone else's. I did like their collaborative approach and had a little chuckle because I thought Steve Williams sounded quite sinister when he said, "We go around and we have a word." I was like, yeah, you and the heavy mob.
But it was great to hear that there are some really sort of simple things that you can do at home, scraping your pans and dishes before you put them in the dishwasher or do the washing up. Lots of really practical advice, which I think is great. But the companies are also obviously working with those food establishments to try to get them adopting better practices. So, I think, one of these situations where everybody can do a bit more to avoid those problems happening.
Yeah, I mean, it fits in with the general theme of Waterfall that actually simple steps can make quite a big difference. And actually, I liked what Steve Grebby was saying, just get your spatula out. If you're at home, you don't need anything more complicated than a spatula. And I do have my spatula that Steve sent me last year. So, thanks, Steve. I did look into getting our branded Waterfall spatulas, but you can only buy them in batches of 100, which I thought was a little bit excessive. There you go. Listeners, there's an opportunity there. Let us know if you'd like your spatula. We'll see what we can do. But yeah, Lily, that was really fascinating stuff from the Steves. And yeah, I dare say we'll be hearing from Steve Grebby in the near future on Waterfall. Right, so any last thoughts from you guys?
I would just like to say to everyone too, again, I haven't mentioned this in a while, go back through the archive. We have over 24 hours of Waterfall out there, and we've joked before that Mike's listened to it, but I'm sure he has. Maybe it was a good marathon companion, etc. But we've got loads of great episodes. I can't believe how deep we're into season 3 now. So, maybe if you haven't heard, the earlier Steve episodes, they're particularly good ones to start with.
They are, actually. He was, as you said earlier, he's the very first guest, and what a good guest he is. He's just a really easy guy to chat to with loads of knowledge on all things sewage. I mean, what a fun guy to have around. Yeah. Also, don't forget to subscribe to Waterfall so you never miss an episode. I think that's, just hit that subscribe button. There you go. Karen, now I feel like you're under pressure to do some blatant plug for Waterfall.
Well, we have fun doing it, and I'd like to think that people can, listen back, get some good advice, but also have a bit of a laugh with us as well.
Right. When are we getting Tony V back on?
He was just on, but yeah.
What a great guest. Right. I think we're out of time now for this week, unfortunately. Don't forget you can get in touch with Waterfall.
Yes, you can email us on podcast@ccwater.org.uk.
And don't forget we're on socials. You can see us on Insta and X. Just search for Waterfall Pod. So there you go. Right. Well, that's it from me, Mike.
Goodbye from me, Karen.
And goodbye from me, producer Tom. I just thought, by the way, a collection of sewer experts, we could call them the Rat Pack.
And on that note...
It's time to leave. It really is.